unless I need to.
I will record. So I will make the recording now. Start the recording. And Lila, at some point in time, if you can, this is one of about 6 calls that we're going to have talking about different elements of the training and the process of how do you determine and how do you decide if the training that we're offering is for you. So, and we have Allison here today to actually address that topic. So, without further ado, unless there are questions, Lila, are you going to be able to at some point in time tell others what the other topics are?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. All right, then I would like to introduce Allison, who is going to help during the training program. Our training program is dedicated to having the people who graduate from the training program be ready to go into the public and make a living when they graduate. And part of that will be, and Allison, see, I forgot. Allison, I was talking with Allison this weekend, and she doesn't want to be necessarily considered someone who's teaching marketing, and so maybe she'll explain that to me.
You remembered.
I do. I remember that you said that, but I don't remember what you said.
Well, it takes iteration.
Okay, so good. So anyway, but the process, the training process that we will hold will continue to help you to investigate your ability to put yourself into the world as a practitioner. And Allison will be guiding that aspect of the training program for you guys. So I'm going to turn over the microphone or the leadership of this hour to Allison. So Allison, if you would please, look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, thank you. I want to just begin by explaining what Jeff alluded to, which is that typically when we think about building a practice, we think about marketing. And that's what people focus on when they're trying to build a practice. And I have been helping people since 2010 to build a practice. And what I know is that it's a lot more than marketing. So I really want to switch the emphasis from thinking that you're going to learn marketing in this program that Jeff is offering to you're going to learn how to build a practice. And it's a much bigger thing because it involves what's going on inside of you. It involves building actually a business, which raise your hand if you'd like to have a business. Ooh, well, that's great. That's very unusual because most hands-on practitioners don't want a business. And that's one of the reasons that they never get a practice, because you need a business to support the practice that's going to be the thing that fulfills your dreams, makes you feel satisfied, and makes you want to get up in the morning and go do your job. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to be self-employed, how to schedule your time, how to attract and enroll clients, the kinds of things that you need to focus on, and the kinds of things that you don't need to focus on. And today, what I want to do is I want to introduce 2 really important questions that have to do with understanding whether or not this training, or in fact any training, is the right place for you to be for the length of time that it takes to become a Feldenkrais practitioner. And so I guess I'd like to ask, because I don't know everybody in the community anymore. When I graduated from my training in 1977 with Moshe in San Francisco, I knew everybody in the Feldenkrais community. There were 65 of us and 12 or 13 Israelis, and that was it. And now I don't know everybody. So if you are a practitioner, would you raise your hand? And if you're considering taking the training, and that's why you're here, would you? Okay, so cool. So I guess what I'd like to start with is the idea that Feldenkrais practitioners spend a lot of time paying attention to what's going on inside. And I believe that we all have a barometer inside that helps us understand whether we're making a good decision or a bad one. I'm making a decision right now to cut the sun on my face. So what I think is a really important piece is to get in touch with that inner authority that we have. So I want to ask you just for a minute to do something that we do a lot of in Feldenkrais land, which is to imagine. So just close your eyes for a moment and go inside and find a time in your life when you had that kind of inner feeling about something that you were going to do. And that inner feeling was maybe not quite so good. And you ignored it. And you went ahead and did the thing anyway. And just follow the path here. What happened when you did it anyway? How did it turn out? And just think, where did you feel it in your body? What was it telling you? What was that pathway like? What was the feeling at the other end? And then think about a time when you had that inner, wow, really, this is it. Everything feels aligned, and you followed that through to its conclusion. Where did you feel that in your body? What did you do? And how did that turn out? And I would just like to ask, just for a show of hands, if when you followed the thing that where you said you were telling yourself somehow with your feeling that this is not a great idea and you did it anyway, if you had a great outcome from that, raise your hand. And so one person. And if you had a great outcome from the other situation where you were like all on board and you felt internally like everything was really going to be terrific, would you raise your hand? So this is, most people feel like when they know that it's a really good idea inside, something happens, everything gets in alignment. And there's like an internal compass that kind of teams up with your ability to look for information, find the things that are relevant, and avoid mistakes and avoid the kind of thing that stops, that can keep you from getting the outcome that you want. And that's what I want to talk about for the first bit of this call, because I think that if you're considering taking any training program, whether it's Jeff's or if you're considering several at the same time, that there are two questions that you really need to ask yourself. And that's what we're going to focus on in the first part of this call. And in the last part, we're going to focus on a third question. So these are the questions, just so you know where we're going. The first is, what do you want? The second is, what do other participants in the training program that you are considering taking want? It's a weird question, but it's a really important one. I think it's one that most people don't ever think about. And the third one is the FTA training right for you? So we're going to get to all three of these today. And the first thing that I want to tell you is why I'm talking about this. And it mostly has to do with the fact that I've been a trainer for 27 years, I think. And in that time, I've seen a lot of people go through training programs, and I have never really heard anybody talk about these first two questions. What did they want, and what did other people want? In a way that had to do with becoming a Feldenkrais practitioner who earns a living. So I'm not saying that that's what you have to do, but that if that's what you want to do, that's the answer to this question. And it's really important to know that, because when you know what you're headed toward, you have a much higher chance of getting it. We have a famous saying in Feldenkrais, in the Feldenkrais world, which is, when you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. I walked up to Moshe Feldenkrais one day after class, and I said, Moshe, I've thought of something really fantastic. And he looked at me like, oh, yeah, I'm sure you did. And I said, you say, when you know what you are doing, you can do what you want. And he said, yeah. I said, well, I found there's something more important than that, which is that first you have to know what you want. And he looked at me like, wow, she might not be quite as dense as I thought she was. Right? And he said to me, now you're getting it. It's like you're on the track. And I have seen this as one of the missing pieces for a lot of people in our world over the last several decades, because people take a training program thinking that, number one, that they're all created equal, and number two, without really knowing where they're going. And I believe that it's possible to be in that place where you don't know where you're going, and it's okay. There are training programs that you should be looking at if you don't know what you want. And you just know that you want to take a Feldenkrais training. But if you know that you want to be a practitioner, then there are specific kinds of things that you should be looking for. And what happens instead is that people tend to make decisions for what I think are the wrong reasons. They decide because they have a practitioner who tells them, oh, go study with this person. I love that person. That person is a great educational director. You'll love the training. Well, you may love your practitioner, but that may not be the best reason for you to take that practitioner's favorite trainer's training program. Okay? It may be that the training program is held in a place that you really want to visit for 4 years, repeatedly. It's a nice idea, may not be the best thing as the deciding factor. Okay, it may be that the schedule of the program is one that fits well with your job, and again, it's a good thing to pay attention to, but if you want to be a Feldenkrais practitioner who earns a living, it's not the most important question you can ask. And the reason for that is that almost any training program is going to give you a baseline of certain kinds of things, plenty of time to explore yourself on the floor, plenty of time to look at what Moshe said and did and wrote and thought about, and ways for you to think about that as well. But not every training program is going to give you a basis for being a working person who lives, breathes, eats Feldenkrais, and earns a living from it. Okay, eats, breathes, yes. Lies on the floor a lot, yes. Earns a living from it, not in my experience. So what I would say is that those are the people want to be in a training program basically for 3 reasons. The first is to be a practitioner. The second is to explore potential and grow as a person. And the third is to avail yourself of a longer exposure to Feldenkrais that may have to do with recovery from an injury. So all training programs are going to give you the second 2. They're all going to give you that exposure and that ability to encounter yourself. They're not all going to give you the ability to become a practitioner who lives, eats, breathes, and earns a living making Feldenkrais. And they're not all going to go as deeply into the ability that you have to encounter yourself in a training program. Okay, so this is the thing that is so important for me when we look at what do you want. If you know that you want to become a practitioner, you need to look for a program that's geared toward making you a practitioner, that's geared toward giving you the situation that you need. Now, all programs will tell you that you can become a practitioner if you choose to do that. So let's look at some of the reasons why a program that's not specifically geared toward making you a practitioner is not the best choice for you if what you want is to be a practitioner. Okay? One of the reasons is that often in a training program, there are a few people who are really intent on earning a living. So maybe 5%, maybe 10% of the people in the training. So if you have 10% of the people who really want to earn a living and 90% who really don't, and the homework is given between segments, go out and start teaching awareness through movement. How many people do you think do it? The people who do it are the people, typically the people who know that they want to become practitioners. So they go out in between segments, and between segments, they start getting experience. They start having adventures in teaching awareness through movement. Questions start coming up. And they come back to the training and they have questions based on their experience. But 90% of the people in the room don't have that kind of experience. And so what happens when they start asking their questions is that they're not relevant to most of the people in the room. And when 90% of the people don't find the questions relevant, what happens is they mostly don't get answered for those people who are out there practicing. When it comes time to do functional integration practice, now you're putting your hands on people. You have to find people to come in and be your practice clients. If you don't know that you want to be a client, that you don't want to be a practitioner, how much incentive do you have to go out and find those people? How much time do you devote to practicing something when you don't know if you want to do it beyond the fact that you want to be in the training program? So that same 10% goes out and starts working with people. They come back and they start asking questions. Why is this like that? I did this and I got that result. What could I have done to get a different result? I had this kind of problem with a person and I didn't know how to address it. What can I do differently? And the questions don't make sense and aren't interesting to 90% of the people in the room. So what happens? They might get answered really briefly. They don't become the topic. They don't become a subject for discussion. And I've had people come and tell me that they asked those kinds of questions in their training, and what they were told was, don't ask those questions. They don't belong here. Well, if they don't belong in your training, where do they belong? So my takeaway from this, as someone helping people build their business, and that's the situation in which this was occurring, is that you need to be in a training that fits what you want. If what you want is a deep exploration of Feldenkrais, take a training that's offering that. Take a training that's geared toward giving you a lot of information, a lot of experience on the floor, and is not going to pressure you toward being a practitioner. Okay, not going to give you a lot of homework, not going to ask you to read Moshe's books and check on whether you did and make sure that you understood what you read and give you a forum for understanding what you learned or think you learned or thought maybe Moshe was talking about but didn't quite understand. So that's the first thing, and it's why this is so important. And can you see what other people in the training program want? This is also crucial, because if other people in the training program don't want what you want, it's going to be very difficult for you to get it. Okay, so this is the basis for asking yourself those questions, because any training program is too expensive, requires too much time, too much energy, and too much uproar in your life to be in the wrong one. Okay, that's my take on it. And I believe that you can ask questions. I believe that you can ask this question of the educational director. When you talk to an educational director from a training program, ask, what do the most people in this training want? Do they want to be practitioners, or are they here to explore? Are they here to find out whether Feldenkrais is something that they want to pursue even? Do they even want to be in the training, or are they just taking the first segment to find out what Feldenkrais is? So I've written a little booklet. It's like 30 short pages that explores this in greater detail. And what I would like to do is to put that into the chat. So you can go there. There's a very short URL there. It's bit.ly/FTP questions. And FTP has capital letters and questions is small letters, and that's really important on a bit.ly link. And I also see that Lila put a link to the other talks in that same place, so you might want to have a look at the chat. So that booklet explores things in greater depth, but that is, to my way of thinking, these are the most important questions that you should be thinking about. And when you think of questions to ask people that you are talking to about taking a training program, this should be in the background of your thinking. All the other things are important. How much time, how much money, where is it? Do I like rain? Do I want to be in the sun? Do I want to lie on the beach every afternoon? Whatever you're thinking about, those are all important, yes. But if the training program doesn't satisfy the basic need that you have in taking it in the first place, then I don't think it's the right choice. And I've seen too many people make a choice based on not thinking about it enough in that regard. So that's why it's so pressing for me. And I just want to stop here before we get into, is the FTA training program right for you? I'd like to know how this lands for you, how this lines up with the thinking that you're doing about taking a training, and with the kinds of questions that you've been thinking about. So is there someone who's considering, if you are considering taking a training, would you like to share what you've been thinking about, or how this lands for you?
Allison, if anybody wants to just raise their hand, I will unmute them, so I'll take care of the unmuting.
Okay, Suzanne has her hand raised.
So I actually was looking at some of Jeff's videos online, and I could kind of just see people in the background, and some of them really didn't look like they were that interested in what was going on, and that actually was kind of concerning to me. And I know that I've been told that it's very long, and you get tired doing it, and I get that. I've been in training like that, but that was one thing that actually came across to me. And as somebody who's been through a training program, not this, but a different one, if you don't have people who are in there doing the practice, you have to work with these people, and you can't learn from whatever they are doing to you. And if they're apathetic about actually practicing, then you're not going to get the fullest experience that you should. And so that's actually, I mean, I really appreciate what Jeff's trying to do in that regard, because I don't want to feel like I'm towing a lot of people along. I'm doing all the work. I did all that when I was in college and stuff like that, those sorts of things. I want to have people who want what I want so that I can get out of it what I want, and from the hands-on part of it as well, from the functional integration training too.
Suzanne, this is a really important point, because one of the things that happens is that when you work with another person in practice sessions in a training program, one of the things that you're doing is giving feedback to each other. Mm-hmm. And if you have feedback that's based on experience working with other people, and you're consistently working with people who haven't got that kind of experience at all and are not giving high quality feedback to you because they just can't, it's a diminishment of your experience.
Right. So I am concerned about that. And then that makes me, so I'm very new to Feldenkrais, just started January 27th. So, but I've seen the light, as I told Jeff, and can't block out, you can't look away now. Mm-hmm. So, you talk about this like there might be other choices. Are there other programs that actually really do this? From when I talked to Jeff, it sounded like he's the only one who's going forth and doing this. So it seems like I landed in the right place to start with.
I would say, in my experience of looking at training programs, there is no other program that is doing what Jeff is doing. Okay. It doesn't mean that everybody belongs in this training.
Okay.
And I think that's a really important thing. And that's why we're going to spend the second half of this call talking about whether or not this program is right for you, because there are pretty high expectations in this program. And Jeff and I have been talking about this for over a year in terms of getting people into the program who are right for the program so that the program can give them what they need. And one of the things that has come up is that Jeff is willing to say to people, sorry, this isn't the right program for you. Mm-hmm. And I can't say that I've had this discussion with every educational director on the planet, but I don't see evidence in most training programs that people are willing to say no.
Mhm.
that there really is almost nobody who is considered to be not a good fit for the program.
Okay. And how many people are actually in a training program?
It depends. There can be up to 80 according to the certification rules,
Okay.
but typically programs top out lower than that, and many programs top out. Actually, if you get the booklet that I gave you the link to, I talk about training programs a little bit in that booklet, and what it takes to become a certified training, and why it is that people are in the training who don't want to be practitioners. And it has a lot to do with economics. It's very costly to mount a certified training program. So if what you're looking for is a broad experience of Feldenkrais, it may not be the best use of your money. But certainly being in a training program that is geared toward people who don't want to be practitioners is not a good use of your money, I think, if you want to be a practitioner. If you want to earn a living, it's not the best place to be.
Maybe I can make just a side note here. This program is over 3 years in the making, and in order for this program to meet certification from the Guild had to build a separate policy for accepting an alternative training proposal. And so we had to wait for a while for the Guild to actually make a policy to accept this training program. It is outside of the regular training accreditation guidelines.
Okay. So how many participants do you anticipate will have this shared vision of becoming a practitioner? I mean, are you going to be able to coalesce a group of people for that if only 10% in any regular training would actually go on?
Every single person will be interviewed, and they will have stated that that's their intention.
Okay.
There will not be a person in their training program who wavers or waffles on that.
Okay.
I envision that there might be people there who plan to do different kinds of things with their training, to use it in different ways, but that every person intends to use it and intends to be a practitioner in order to make that happen. Jeff, Jane has her hand up. She's still muted.
Can you hear me? Right. Yeah, you said you had trouble getting this training set up. So does that mean that it's just going to be, it could be just a one-off thing, or will it be a, like, maybe I can't take it this time, but maybe I'm looking to do it next time. Will there be a second time?
The Guild has made it possible for there to be 3 alternative training programs. This is the only one that's been accepted at this point. And as to whether or not I will do additional trainings, I have to completely spend my intention is to mount this training first. Okay.
Other questions that are coming up based on this first part of what we've talked about. Cheryl.
Yeah, what you're saying really lands for me. I'm 6 years out of a coaching training. It was a 15-month, very rigorous coaching program that includes the body as an instrument of change. This really attracted me once I worked with someone who I think was training. It was Paul Linden in your cohort, Jeff, about what the acuity of a Feldenkrais perspective could achieve in terms of working with the body for change. So I'm currently running my own coaching business, coaching and consulting business. This feels like the somatic piece I wanted to go deeper with 6 years ago is finally answering that call. So I completely affirm, having gone through a coaching program where everyone who was in was really focused on carrying it forward, the quality of the learning when you're doing very interactional, like working on embodied competence, it was crucial. So everything you're saying is like, yeah, I can't, it's hard for me to imagine that people would invest into 3 years of training, sort of, like to kind of, like as much as I value, I'm on personal development and evolution journey my whole life, but it's a huge commitment to not then fulfill that. So for me, this completely lands.
Good. Thank you, Cheryl. Other comments on what we've just talked about? Okay, what I would like to do is to, I'm not going to share my screen, but I'm going to invite Jeff to go to our, if he wants to our Google Doc, or I'll just walk us both through it. We've spent a lot of time looking at who this program is for. The thing that I would say is really clear is that there's a pretty good idea. I'm just sending you the link to that document, Jeff. There's a pretty good idea about the kind of intention that it takes to do this training. So if you feel like what you want is to be a practitioner, the next thing is to look at, are you a person who is going to be able to make the time for this? This training happens in an amount of time that could feel like a lot of pressure and possibly too much. It's a training that requires that you stay connected because of the way that it's set up, not only with the in-person live segments, but the bi-weekly segments in between the live segments, the Zoom calls. And while there's a tremendous amount of support, I will tell you that in my experience, any kind of teaching and learning like this is not a 50-50 experience. It's like the teachers give 100% of what they can give, and that's about 10% of what you need. The other 90% has to come from you. And so I think that's where we're going in this next half hour, is to look at what does that 90% look like. So Jeff, I want to start with this from the standpoint that, like when we talked about this right at the top of that document, we're talking about the kinds of things that that would mean that you want to be a Feldenkrais practitioner, about helping people. There's a whole separate call about whether or not you want a dog. About performing better and things like that. So I'd like to I want to turn that over to you. You're looking at our document. I didn't leave you out in the middle of the desert, right?
No, I have the document.
You have the document. So just from the standpoint of looking at the kinds of things that we've already talked about, just say a couple of minutes about what you see the value of this being for anybody moving into a new career.
Well, what I have been on a lot about recently, talking about, and it's not necessarily even a new career. If we even look at the landscape of what's to be in front of us for the next 15 years or 20 years, and you ask people, how are you going to gain the resources that you need in order to meet the changing conditions that we're facing? And those conditions that are changing, of course, are that there's going to be more uncertainty and more complexity, and life's going to be more complicated. And we can look at the general world and say, okay, are people, what they're presently doing now, will provide them with the resources that they need in order to live a vital life that meets the demands in such a way that they actually thrive in the uncertainty rather than be overwhelmed by the uncertainty. And then the question is as Feldenkrais practitioners, are we going to be ready to meet the needs of the people that come to us in that world of complexity? And that's a huge question. And that, I believe, has to be the focus of the Feldenkrais practice. We have to look into what are we going to be facing in 15 years? What will we be facing? Who will be our clients? Who's going to be coming to us? It's not just people that are injured. It's going to be people that live extraordinarily complex lives. And they're going to have the personal dignity, skill, aplomb to find the means in themselves, the sort of composure in themselves to meet a changing world. So the question then, of course, as a practitioner is, well, am I really interested in working with people in such a way that that I can help them with this physical integrity, with their emotional dignity, and the means to actually engage in life in such a way that they don't become subsumed by the complexity that they face. And I think that we in the Feldenkrais method are uniquely positioned, even though we're not well known, to be real agents for helping people meet the change that's coming. We have advantages that other practitioners don't have. And the question is of course, that for us to become skillful within ourselves to the point that we have the means to help people in these coming times of change. So then the question is what are your interests? I mean, we have a list here that we made. If you want people to perform better, whatever that means, recover from shock and injury, to become self-reliant, to imagine for yourself what your own demeanor would be if you didn't experience anxiety and some level of insecurity within yourself. What would your face be like? What would your breath be like? How would you carry your shoulders? How would you exist within yourself? In what way would you comport yourself? So how would you work with people, first of all, with yourself, to have the sense of anxiety reduced, increase the sense of self-esteem, reduce the sense of insecurity, and move into the sense of being alive in a world, maintaining this particular kind of comportment and composure. And so to go along with that, then we have to ask the question, what kind of career is that? And that's an interesting question for us, because we want to be in a career, I want to be in a career that's continually energizing, continually inspires me, one that I continually find that there's meaning, and it increases my personal sense of motivation for every day. How can I continue to be in the place where I find a refinement with myself? Yesterday, I was working with a client, and I have been trying to solve a particular mystery from a particular Sufi story for over 15 years. And there's a particular internal meaning of the story that has escaped me. And as I was working with the client, I absolutely understood the internal meaning of the story. And it profoundly impacted my way of being with the client, because it gave me a shape of internal wisdom that actually became a part of the way my hands touched the client. This is a particular kind of working continually within ourselves to mature and to refine ourselves in such a way that can be expressed in the environment in which we work with people. So, I mean, I don't know if that helps at all, but
I want to break in here, because what I would like to do is to direct your attention to the kind of thing that Jeff just talked about. Because one of the things that happens, and I can't tell you, I've got another little ebook that I wrote about how you stop fixing people and help them transform. Okay, because one of the major things that happens in the world of hands-on work is that people don't want to fix people. They know that they got transformation from their training, and they want to pass that on. That's what Jeff is talking about. But when you look at what's going on in the Feldenkrais world, the overwhelming number of people that you can find will tell you that they feel like their clients come because they want to be fixed. And my contention about this is that if you want to attract people who don't want to be fixed but want to be transformed, the first thing is you have to stop fixing people. So the fact that so many practitioners are complaining about the fact that so many people want to be fixed, it's an indication to me that what they're learning in the training programs they're taking is how to fix people. And you can hear from what Jeff is talking about, that's not what he's talking about. Jeff's talking about another level. He's talking about what, to me, Feldenkrais work is really about. It's about how I can use this to change my life. Okay, so that I think is a key thing. If you want to fix people, this is probably not a good training for you. If you want to have the means of helping people transform, you could be in the right place. Jeff, let's talk a little bit about what kinds of qualities people need in order to kind of keep up with how fast or how much the intensity, to keep up with your brain, to keep up with the brains of the people who are going to be teaching. What do people need?
We should take a moment and introduce Laura, who's the program project manager up in the corner there. If you'll raise your hand, Laura. Yeah. And Andrew Gibbons has just come on, and he'll be one of the assistants for all of you in the program as well. So I think we should recognize that Lila will always be in the background as in administration. Hi, Lila, and of course you, Allison. So I just wanted to have a chance to do that. The main aspect is a particular kind of hunger, an internal kind of an energy, a curiosity towards I can only say it this way at this moment. It comes and goes in many ways for me, but Feldenkrais used to come around and he would kick me in the foot and say, I take better care of you than you can take care of yourself. And I didn't know what that meant. And over the years, I had to have a thirst eventually for what does it mean to care for myself? And how can caring for myself be the basis with which I can work with other people so that they can learn to care for themselves, as opposed to them continually maintaining that which they've done all their life in order to give themselves a sense of meaning. And that's a paradox. So I want to work with people who are willing to live in paradox, who are curious, who have a vital curiosity about what's the potential they have to actually live a life that we could call healthy. Meaning, how do I gain the resources to thrive, to move upstream relative to a changing world that really doesn't want me to move upstream? It really wants to do its very best to crush me. So those are the people I want to work with. I want people who are capable of looking into themselves. And the main thing, I think, is actually willing to be involved in self-assessment in such a way that they aren't critical of themselves, but they're absolutely critical about what it is they do, how they can reference themselves, how they can refine themselves, assess themselves, make plans, make educational plans, and continue to move towards looking at the areas in themselves with complete compassion for themselves. Look at the areas themselves where they most need to develop themselves so they can bring a sense of wholeness to the people they work with. So, it's no small task, but I mean, why not?
No, it's a big task.
We'll have it by tomorrow.
And self-compassion is one of the major pieces because we've all got voices that speak to us. And those voices don't always say kind things, right? And I think that this is one of the main ways in which we end up not getting what we want, is not knowing how to deal with those voices, not knowing what to do with them, not knowing how to listen to them, not knowing what they mean, not knowing where they came from. And I think that when we have all of that going on, underneath something that is new and demanding and asking us to do something that we've never been able to do, which is to really be compassionate for our ability to learn and not to have to know the answer before we start. If you're one of the people who, this was definitely me, I had a very hard time learning because I felt like I had to know how to do it. I couldn't show up as a beginner ever. Cheryl, I see resonance happening over there. It's a big problem. And it's very hard to be compassionate for yourself if that's what's going on in the background. So that learned compassion is a major element, I think, of what we're doing. And we're going to be working on it all the time in this training.
And also we have to recognize very clearly that, to be a Feldenkrais practitioner, now this work is eminently adaptable and it can be taken into many different ways, and if people can understand it in many different ways. They can take it into business settings, as Allison is demonstrating right now, she is actually performing a functional integration lesson as we are going through this process, in the way that she's approaching this process, which is having us she gave us a reference to our own internal imagery, and then she's helping us to find a pathway in that imagery into an outcome that will be a new outcome. That's a functional integration lesson that's taking place. So, but in general, the general practitioner has to be comfortable with being able to be in an intimate setting where you're working with people with your hands on them. And you also have to have the ability to think on your feet, to have a particular kind of charisma that Allison can talk about, but to be able to take the Feldenkrais material, the lessons, which for the most part, at this point in time in the evolution of the method, are scaffoldings. They're frameworks. But we have to have the maturity and the capacity within ourselves in a spontaneous and creative ways to fill out the blanks in such a way that the lessons have a meaning to the people that we're working with. And so that means we have to have a creative way of taking the general form of the lessons and adapting them to meet the needs of the people that will be our students in our classes. And it's a question. I mean, people say the Feldenkrais method looks like a yoga class. Absolutely not. Because the general nature of the lessons are, how do you ask questions to people so they become self-referential and find the answers within themselves? Well, how can you lead that process? So those are the things that these are skill sets that you kind of have to have a sense that you're attracted towards, I believe.
So Jeff, let's talk a little bit about who this program isn't for. I think, one of the big things for me is that it really isn't for people who haven't yet decided that they want to be practitioners, that they want to use this work in a wider sense in the world with people who would be called clients, or in some way that it gains a bigger, broader, deeper meaning and understanding in the world. That if this, for example, the father of my children he's a Feldenkrais practitioner, and he had experience with Moshe before our San Francisco training. He went to Israel, spent 6 weeks, had a lesson with Moshe every day. When we got divorced, I thought that should have been part of our settlement, but I was never able to make it work. I never understood. He was in it entirely for himself. And while we tried more or less to have a practice together, I never understood why he didn't want to do anything really with other people. Once in a while, he taught a class, and that was it. If that's where you are, this is probably not the program for you, because that's a different kind of inquiry than the one that this program is going to be making.
I think the major question that we would have in this training program is oftentimes, and again, people come to training programs. For example, if you go to the Rolf Institute, and nothing right or wrong about the Rolf Institute, but if you go to the Rolf Institute, you learn 10 distinct separate sessions that you learn how to give, and you become pretty good at giving them, and there's a particular security that comes in learning that you have 10 sessions that you're going to sell, that you have been passed on. In this method, people oftentimes come to this method expecting to be given explicit information. If person A comes into me, I want to know a set of skills that are A-level skills, so that every time a person A comes into me, I'm going to have a set of skills with which I'm going to be able to meet that environment, meet that person, and help them, so that I can literally use what takes place in the session so that I can sense that I'm okay. So that's not the right person for this training program. If you're a person who says, okay, this person and I are meeting for the first time, and we're going to, out of my resource and out of their resource, we're going to dance in such a way that both of us seek to find and come to a place we've never been before, but my skill level is such that I can ask questions in such a way that the person can find within themselves something that they've never known, and it helps them function in some kind of higher way, whatever that could be. It could be emotionally, it could be physically, it could gain physical integrity, it could be a way in which they they become compassionate with themselves. And they come to a place where within themselves they've never been before, and where you are willing to go that you've never been before. And out of that curiosity, and the two of you taking the time that you have to be in a place that's not explicit, where I'm going to take something that I've learned and apply it to someone. That's the main criterion for me, is a determining factor of whether or not this program fits for someone. Because, and it's going to be difficult in the sense that, I don't know if it's fair to say it's going to be difficult, but the general educational paradigm that we live in seeks to have something that we can use for success so that we can have a sense that we're okay.
The metric is not the one that we're using.
Right.
And I would say also that that's a starting place for making this decision for yourself, but that beyond that, there's another thing, which is if you look at what do you want, and the answer is, I want a secure income, I want a job, I want to know that somebody is doing marketing for me, someone is bringing in the clients, somebody is giving me the work to do. This is probably not the training for you. In fact, Feldenkrais may not be the profession for you, because there are very few jobs in the Feldenkrais world. So this is really an area where most people end up self-employed, and if they're actually earning a living doing Feldenkrais. A few people who are PTs might be able to bring Feldenkrais into what they're doing and remain as PTs and still have a job where a clinic is bringing clients in. But for the most part, that's not what Feldenkrais practitioners do. And so I would look carefully at that also, because it requires, as I said in the very beginning, the willingness to have a business. Because there are three, this is why I have a whiteboard. There are three parts to having a Feldenkrais business. And the first thing is that you have your practice skills, okay? And those practice skills are what you learn in the training. But supporting that, if you think about this as like the carriage on a train, you need two things. On either side, you need wheels. And they actually are like this. They intersect here. And these wheels, this is supposed to be a Venn diagram, but you can see how bad an artist I am. These wheels are business, personal growth, and your modality. Okay, so if you can't intersect the personal growth and the business part with your modality, it's very difficult to have a business. And so if this isn't what you want, then Feldenkrais may not be right for you in the first place, because finding a job where that's going to happen is really difficult.
And now I thirst and hunger for this level of conversation. Yeah, I think the training has to investigate at this level of interest and interaction. So it's not just the question of lying on the floor and doing the ATM, but how do I investigate the internal strategy of the lesson, and then how do I have it become, in that Venn diagram, how does it move me personally in such a way that I can actually produce a business out of it?
Right, and I will tell you this also, Jeff alluded to the fact that what I'm doing with you here is a functional integration lesson. This is the way I teach having a business. This is, and people have said to me, I don't understand, you say you're just doing business coaching, which I don't say I'm just doing business coaching, but they say this is like doing Feldenkrais. And the reality is that all of these things have to fit together in a way that they're inside your life. I mean, this is it. They have to fit with you. If they don't fit with you, that was a pretty poor color choice, right? If they don't fit with you, you're not going to do them. So all of those things have to be inside the circle of you. And so there's no, it's just like there's no template for a lesson. When someone comes in, there's no template for this. We have to create that for you. You have to make that, you have to customize it, you have to make it feel like you, or you aren't going to do it. Particularly this part, everybody loves the personal growth part, but the business part, you're not going to make the business happen if the business feels like somebody else. Okay, so this is all of what we are intending to do, and it's no wonder that it's taken some time to bring it forth. No small endeavor. What I'd like to do is to open this for questions again for a few minutes at this point. What's this bringing up in you? Melissa?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's
I got
great.
you.
Okay. Great stuff, really relevant for me. I'm a massage therapist, and I think one of the things I've struggled with is the fixing of people and burnout. And I've looked back a lot on, when I became a therapist 10 years ago and thought, why did I get into this profession?
What was I thinking?
I know, because of just the level of not being able to give people what they're looking for, and feeling like I can't fix people, and I don't like working with people that aren't willing to take the reins for themselves. So that's a little bit of my concern of whether or not Feldenkrais for me. I know if I continue in body work, absolutely, this is the only direction to go. I look back at why I went to training for massage, which was another big time and money investment, and think it's because I love receiving massage, and same with Feldenkrais. I love this conversation, the books I'm reading, the classes I'm taking. It's blowing my mind. And I'm trying to make that distinction. Is this for me? Is this something I'm better at being a student for? Or is it something that I really need to lean into as a human being and just take the path and see where it leads me? So that's the question for me. It's probably really not going to be answered. I think I just need to take the plunge. But
Melissa, I would like to make a suggestion for you. I would like to suggest to you that you have a conversation that you write down, or type out, but that it's really, it has that element of evolving over time with the part of you that doesn't know.
Yeah.
And find out really, what is it that you don't know? Because there are many things that have come up here already just in a couple of minutes with you. One thing that you don't know is whether you want to continue to work with people by putting your hands on them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a big thing. And so I would encourage you to explore that as its own area of curiosity. Another thing that I think could be productive for you is to look at the question, if I didn't continue to touch people to make a living, what would I do? What is there that calls me? And to begin to look at things sometimes side by side is a really useful thing, because if you right at the beginning of this call, when I asked you to pay attention to your gut, you can do a gut check in a lot of different ways. One way to do it is even like to assign heads and tails. Right? Heads, I continue touching people. Tails, I stop touching people. Flip the coin. And at the moment that it lands, you watch your stomach to find out what you want to do. It's not that you take what it says, but that moment of, it's that, I didn't want it to be that you feel deep down in some place inside yourself, it's very revealing. Okay, so there are a lot of ways that you can get information from yourself. And I strongly encourage you to take the time to do that, because this is a big decision, and it sounds like you're at a big crossroads in your entire thinking.
Thank you, Allison.
See, I think also something to go along with this is that I think that a really intriguing aspect of this process is to not have this method be a stale method, but to see, are we as a group of people interested in imagining where it can go and how we can evolve it. And that's also a part of the conversation that I hope that we continue to have. I don't want to teach the method in a stale way. I want to utilize the method in a way that supports people, and in a way that we continue to refine how it's taught and how it comes forward into the world. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a touching profession, or it's going to be a teaching everybody on the floor profession. We don't know. Like we're still seeing Allison. We could see if you had been around Laura and Lila over the years as they've slowly helped me develop my business, you can see that they've been performing for me this extraordinary task that comes out of their skills both as Feldenkrais practitioners, but they have a background in which they bring their Feldenkrais skills into how we can evolve this business together. And it's an extraordinary endeavor, and it's super challenging. So I just want to say that there's a creative element to the nature of the method, especially if we're going to meet the needs of a public that's going to face such complexity in the future. It has to evolve, and our thinking and our definition of what this method is has to continue to evolve. It's not going to stand if it stays where it is. I don't believe.
I just want to throw in, when I heard you speak, Melissa, it's Laura. Allison, you're looking.
I found you.
What the memory brought up for me was one of my clients once said to me, I've done massage, I've done acupuncture, I've done all the, alternative medicines, I've done PT, I've done, there's one more that I should be thinking of, I forget what it is, acupuncture, PT, massage. Anyway, and this is the only place where I need to pay attention. Right? Because this fundamentally is a learning modality. And so I don't think of this work as body work myself. That's not the way I think of it. I think of it as I do touch people, but that it's so exciting to teach and to help people assist them in their own self-study of what are they doing, how are they doing it. And in that, I get to learn about myself too. I get to learn, so we're in a sort of mutual learning environment. And that's what's so exciting for me. So I just wanted to share that.
Because you don't have the answers, it sounds like it's partially that you're not giving them the answer.
Yeah, I can't tell you where your hip joint is. I can show you a diagram. And I had an MD show up, a friend of mine's, gone through medical school. She was starting her residency, and we were doing our thing. And at some point, this MD says to me, "Oh, who's done cadaver work? Oh, that's where my hip joint is."
Yep.
She saw it on a cadaver. Yes, she saw it in anatomy books. But really, it's so odd. Our leg is not straight. The humerus is not a straight bone. And the humerus doesn't come in at the bottom of the pelvis.
No, that's the femur.
The femur, sorry. Femur.
It doesn't come in at the bottom of the pelvis.
It doesn't come in at the bottom of the pelvis.
That is for sure.
Laura was 100% right.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry. But the femur comes in, their sit bones are below the femur, right? And this model that we have of ourselves affects how we move, how we be in the world. And I can't give it to you. I can only be there with you in helping and to help you find it. So again, I don't really think of myself as someone who does body work. I think of myself as someone who's really helping people learn about something that's incredibly important, which is themselves.
Yeah.
And this whole world of Feldenkrais touch is a completely different world anyway. I can't tell you how many massage therapists and physical therapists in my past training programs have been crying in my arms because they can't learn. They say, I'll never learn this touch. My touch has always been directive. And we're learning how to listen with our touch and ask questions. It's to help a person's self-image, to listen their self-image into themselves, because you give them something that they've never been able to find before in themselves. And so it's a complete different world of touch in and of itself. So.
Other things that are coming up for you, gremlins that are stirring, voices that are calling, understandings, something landing, inspiration, ahas, insights. Jane.
I got it. Go ahead, Jane.
She's still muted.
I know, I'm not, for whatever reason, I'm unable to
Okay,
unmute.
I'm off now. Yeah, no, sort of, this has just been very informative because, yeah, it is very, very important when you, I've done yoga training. I'm from a yoga background. So, you know, I have no problem sort of standing in front of a class, you know, teaching people. And, but like, yeah, and when I did the yoga training as well, you know, yeah, there was sort of like 90% who were in there for exploration, but there was sort of no sort of like information about how to make a business, right? And when you ask those questions, well, I was like, well, you know, hey, come on, you know, it's just be, you know, cool out kind of thing. So like, that's always to invest so much money into another training where the business part of that modem you wrote on the board, you know, is actually a part of the training, as well as personal growth. You know, it just brings up a lot of because I love Feldenkrais. I mean, the more I do ATMs, the more I just sort of like, and the more I do the same ATM after like 3 months, you know, you there's just this whole big sort of like discovery going on again, even though you've done it kind of thing. And then that just blows my mind. So what brings it up for me is just sort of like, yeah, do I just want to continue this as a personal growth, or yeah, be a practitioner? I live in Japan, so what I find more and more, I've done sort of like, I've never had like, you know, real training as a Feldenkrais practitioner, but I incorporate aspects of it, from what I think are aspects of it, into yoga classes. And I just think Japanese, more and more, they're trained not to fail. So they're trained to have an answer, and if they don't get an answer, well, then it's a waste of money kind of thing. So I find more and more like saying that there is no answer, only what you feel, and what you feel is okay. In a Japanese situation is very difficult to make a business out of.
Do you know, Jane, this speaks to the sovereignty that we're looking for in the Feldenkrais method, because we too much give away our ability to make decisions for ourselves, and the answer exists outside ourselves and someone else gives it to us. And then it's our job to go find it because it's out there as an objective thing. And I think that what we're talking about here has to do with finding what it takes to know that we have an answer and to be able to believe it when we feel it. And I think
that's scary.
Yeah, it is very scary sometimes, but it's also very empowering, because I don't really know of any other modality that gives us that possibility. It's not, no other modality is giving us the tools to make ourselves known to ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I think found the most great about Feldenkrais is that, and to have peace with yourself about you, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, but like yeah, but whether I can make a business out of it or not, and like, you know, timing and kids and, you know, husbands, you know, you got to think of everything. So that's just a lot of thinking, I think, and having these conversations too. You know, yeah, do I really want to do this training? You know, is very important. So thank you very much. Anyway, I think that's enough.
Thank you for coming. Andrew.
Can everybody hear me? You hear me okay?
Yes.
I just want to also plant a flag and say that there's, because Jeff is leading this training, there's an enormous amount of specificity that you would learn in this training. I loved my initial training program. It was not with Jeff. It was with a different trainer. But I suffered from enthusiasm married to quite a bit of vagueness. And I understand that part of the conversation is about not fixing people and not trying to do it for them and bringing them into the process. And that's all incredibly important. But there's going to be a lot of specificity, functional specificity in this training that makes it possible for you to be a very useful resource for your clients in the process of the sessions. Because for you to just be vague and just say, well, then you have to find it, I can't give it to you. Obviously, that doesn't quite work either. So you have to really hold both sides of that conversation where you have the functional understanding that can lead to the questions that can help them in the session, and that you're not at a loss and just sort of meandering around. Mm-hmm. Which, like I said, my initial training I really enjoyed, but it didn't have a tenth of the functional specificity that I found when I started working with Jeff. And the process orientation of the method was really what I was in love with when I first came to it. I had no background in touching people, just so you know. When I came to my training, I just was harboring a secret wish that I'm going to find out more about this, because this thing helped me, this method helped me out of an unspeakable jam in my life, and in a way that many, many other attempts didn't even come close to. And I just found I had an affinity for exploring, and I found, wow, I could really put that to use. So my love of the process of the method was...
You just went dark, Andrew.
I just went dark. Sorry. Can you still hear me? Okay, you can still hear me. So my love of the process was absolutely foundational to me even being able to be enthusiastic about the work. But the kind of functional specificity that I found working with Jeff is really what made it possible for me to have a successful business. Because I can, Melissa, to your question, as a massage therapist, like, you can't fix people. You know, I tried too, and I tried as a Feldenkrais practitioner, right? I tried to apply my enthusiasm and as much as possible, but it's not until you've worked with a client, the same client, for 8 years, and you realize I keep giving it out there, and I'm just not creating the right kind of space. I'm not creating a joint attention. I'm either just I'm flooding the space with my own attention too much, or I'm not really helping them come into the session much more than they have been. And it's really true. You can't. And the art of it is bringing them into the space with you, and then also using your functional knowledge to help potentiate what takes place. It doesn't mean you just make it happen for them. But that's a really important part of the program, and the focus on really understanding those points about self-organization is something that I would say it's a very good reason to be in this particular training.
I want to just tag on what Andrew said about assessment that Candy Canino is going to be doing, and about the business side of this. Because I think that all of those aspects are going to have the same kind of specificity and the same kind of freedom to explore where you are within that, so that it comes out in the end that it fits you, that it's not a cookie cutter, but it's definitely a cookie. Okay, and I think that's the big difference with this training, that there's a real clear objective at the end of this training, which is that the people who do what the training is about, take it, follow it, leave the training with skills they can apply in a way that feels like them, with the ability to build a business in a way that feels like them, and with a way to know where they are and feel confident having gotten there in a way that every moment feels like them. And so it really, I think, is going to be self-directed learning within a specific system that will produce practitioners like we haven't seen before. And that's why I'm here. So, Jeff, you're muted. Jeff, can you unmute yourself, Jeff?
I can. There we go. I think we've gone well past our allotted time at this point. And so I think that we probably do need to bring this to a close unless there's some last minute question. But I would like to invite Lila to give us a little bit of a preview of the next talks, if you'd be able to do that, Lila. I have unmuted you. You're on.
So it's funny, my buttons have disappeared. So hi, everybody. I'm the administrator for Inside Moves and for this program. And I think I've emailed with all of you. I just want to let you know, so some of the things that we're going to be doing, that we're going to continue doing the next couple of months, we have a series of these online talks. And roughly monthly with different, with Jeff and different staff of the training. The next one is March, and it's March 20th, and it's why become a Feldenkrais practitioner at all. The next one is in April, what is competency-based training, which is how one of the differences in how this training is organized is that it's really focused on your competence, training you to be a competent practitioner. May is how is Feldenkrais different from other modalities. July is making a living as a Feldenkrais practitioner. August is why focus on gravity, which is something we focus on a lot. And I'm not going to go through the exact schedule for all of those talks, but I did put in the chat, and we'll email you a follow-up email after this talk and just send you to all the links and everything you need to know if you want to join us for more of these talks. We're also doing weekend pre-training workshops around the country over the next few months. So I really encourage you to attend one of those. You'll get a really good sense of what it's like to be in a training, and Jeff as an educational director and several other of the other staff will be in attendance for some of those. Right now we have them scheduled we just had one in Maryland over this weekend. It was great. There were 45 people there. Seattle is the beginning of next month. Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia is at the end of next month, and then Berkeley in June, and we're going to have Los Angeles and Portland and a couple other places, New York potentially as well. So we really encourage you to come experience in person just to get a really clear sense of whether doing the training is right for you, whether this training is right for you. So like I said, don't worry about remembering all that information. We will send you a follow-up email.
Allison, bring us home.
Well, I want to say one thing tagging on to Lila, because Jeff and I are embarking on a series of short conversations about specific topics. And those will also be, I believe, Lila, is that right? Somewhere on the website, we'll find a home for those. Mm-hmm. So there will be more things where what Jeff said in the beginning was he wanted to have in-depth conversations. And he and I seem to go in-depth on a lot of things. So we're going to record some of those, and they will be available. So I would like to finish just by asking you to go back inside yourself and look at what's happened in the last hour and 20 minutes and just find and listen for the voice that says to you, what's the most important thing that happened for me in the last hour and 20 minutes? And then ask, give me a sign. I want a sign. Give me a feeling somewhere in my body about what that means for me. And then wherever you are, from Japan to the other side of the world, I wish you a good evening, a good morning, a good day, or whatever you are embarking on, and pleasant dreams or pleasant ponderings during your day or whatever on this in relation to your future, because we come to places in our lives where the road forks and there are decisions. And when that happens, it's really important to read as many signs as you can find. So look for them inside yourself, ask questions, get the information you need, and then I would say trust your gut, because probably it hasn't steered you far wrong in the past. And that's it for me. Thank you all for the time you've given to this.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.